The summer evening started like any other in the quiet neighborhood of Pine Grove. 8-year-old Daniel Anderson chased fireflies in his backyard, their gentle lights dancing in the growing darkness. His father, Commander James Anderson, watched from the kitchen window while washing dishes, a small smile playing on his tired face. James had just returned from another long day at Earth's Space Defense Force headquarters. The military installation, hidden beneath the mountains 50 miles away, held secrets that would shock the average citizen. But here, in this moment, he was just a father watching his son play. 10 more minutes, Danny. He called out through the open window. Then it's time for homework. Daniel's laughter echoed back, pure and innocent. 5 more minutes, Dad. I almost caught the biggest one. The security cameras around their home recorded everything that happened next. Later, analysts would watch the footage thousands of times, studying every detail of humanity's first hostile contact with an advanced alien civilization. At exactly 7:42 p.m., a purple light flickered in the sky. The fireflies scattered, as if sensing danger. Daniel stopped, looking up with wonder at the strange glow. The light intensified, casting eerie shadows across the well-kept lawn. James felt it before he saw it. A change in air pressure that made his military-trained instincts scream in alarm. He dropped the plate he was washing and ran toward the back door. Daniel, get inside now. But it was too late. A beam of intense purple energy shot down from the sky, enveloping Daniel in its otherworldly glow. The boy didn't even have time to scream. In less than 2 seconds, both the beam and Daniel vanished, leaving only scorched grass where he had stood. James burst through the door, his heart pounding. Daniel. His voice cracked with desperation. Daniel. Above them, barely visible against the darkening sky, a massive ship shimmered into view. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it look like a hole in reality. Before anyone could react, it accelerated upward at impossible speeds and disappeared into the clouds. Within minutes, military vehicles surrounded the Anderson home. Teams of scientists swept the area with advanced equipment, collecting readings and samples. James stood in the middle of his backyard, still calling his son's name, until Colonel Linda Morgan, his superior officer, arrived. James, she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. We need you at command. The readings, they matched the signals we've been tracking for months. James turned to her, his face transformed from that of a grieving father to a hardened military commander. The Galactic Imperium, he said, his voice cold. They'd finally shown themselves. In the following hours, the truth emerged. The Imperium, an ancient alliance of advanced alien species, had been observing Earth for decades. They viewed younger civilizations not as potential allies, but as resources to be studied and exploited. Daniel wasn't their first victim, but he would be their last. As James sat in the emergency briefing room, surrounded by the world's top military leaders, he accessed classified files that had been hidden for years. Earth had recovered technology from a crashed Imperium scout ship 20 years ago. While the aliens believed humans to be primitive, Earth's scientists had been quietly reverse engineering their technology, preparing for the day they might need it. They took my son. James addressed the room, his voice steady despite his pain. But they don't know what they've done. They think they're dealing with a primitive species. They're wrong. He brought up holographic displays showing Earth's secret fleet of advanced warships. They don't know that we've been preparing. And now, they've given us a reason to strike back. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had hoped first contact would be peaceful, but the Imperium had chosen war. They had taken a child. And in doing so, they had awakened a force they couldn't comprehend. Human vengeance. As the emergency meeting continued into the night, one thing became clear. The Galactic Imperium was about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate a species fighting for its children. News of Daniel's abduction spread across the globe like wildfire. Within 24 hours, Every major news network showed the purple beam footage. People watched in horror as the 8-year-old boy vanished into thin air, taken by an advanced alien civilization. But the world's horror quickly turned to anger. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States stood before the United Nations General Assembly. The normally bustling room sat in complete silence as she spoke. "For too long, we have fought among ourselves," she said, her voice firm. "Today, we face a threat bigger than any single nation. The Galactic Imperium believes they can steal our children. They think we are weak and divided. Today, we prove them wrong." Representatives from China, Russia, and the European Union stood up one by one, pledging their complete support. Countries that had been enemies for generations now found themselves working together. The threat of the Imperium had achieved what decades of diplomacy could not: true global unity. At Earth's Space Defense Force headquarters, Commander James Anderson worked tirelessly. Dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept since Daniel's abduction, but his mind remained sharp. He stood before the newly formed United Earth Council, showing them evidence his team had gathered. "The Imperium has been studying us for years," he explained, pointing to a holographic map showing alien activity across the globe. "They've taken people before, mostly those who wouldn't be missed. Homeless individuals, isolated travelers. We found their pattern too late." His voice caught slightly. "Too late to save my son." The council members leaned forward as James revealed more classified information. "But we have something they don't expect. 20 years ago, we recovered this." He pressed a button, and a new hologram appeared, the wreckage of an alien scout ship. "Since then, we've been reverse engineering their technology. We have ships ready, weapons they don't know about. And now we have the entire world's resources at our disposal." In orbit, the first signs of Earth's unified strength became visible. Chinese space stations linked with American ones. Russian satellites coordinated with European defense systems. Japanese and Indian space forces merged their commands with the global fleet. The unified Earth fleet took shape, with the massive warship Retribution as its flagship. Built in secret using reverse-engineered alien technology, it represented humanity's best chance at fighting back. Down on Earth, millions of people gathered in cities across the globe. They held candlelight vigils for Daniel and all the others taken by the Imperium. In Times Square, a giant screen showed Daniel's last photo. A smiling boy with bright eyes and missing front teeth. Below it, a simple message read: "We will find you." Commander Anderson stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at Earth through the view screen. Colonel Morgan approached him, holding a tablet. "The tracking system is ready," she said. "We've isolated the unique energy signature from the abduction beam. If they use it anywhere in the galaxy, we'll know." James nodded, his jaw set firmly. "How many ships are combat ready?" 15 capital ships, 40 destroyers, and over 100 smaller craft, all equipped with the reverse-engineered quantum drive. We can match their speed now." For the first time since Daniel's abduction, James allowed himself a small smile. The Imperium thinks they're dealing with primitives who can barely reach their own moon. They have no idea we've been preparing for this moment for 20 years. An alarm blared suddenly. Colonel Morgan rushed to a console, her eyes widening. "Sir, we've detected their energy signature. It's active right now, 3,000 light-years from Earth." James straightened his uniform, his eyes cold with determination. "Send the coordinates to all ships. It's time to show the Imperium exactly what humanity can do." He turned to face the bridge crew. "Let's go get our people back." The Retribution's engines hummed to life, joined by dozens of other ships around Earth. The largest space fleet humanity had ever assembled prepared for its first mission. The Imperium was about to learn that taking the human child was the biggest mistake they could have made. The unified Earth fleet dropped out of quantum space with perfect precision. 15 massive warships, their hulls gleaming with stealth coating, emerged 3,000 light-years from Earth. At their head, The Retribution's sensors scanned the area where they had detected the Imperium's energy signature. Commander James Anderson studied the holographic display on the bridge. A massive space station hung in orbit around a dead moon, its purple-tinted metal matching the color of the beam that took Daniel. "Life signs?" he asked, his voice steady despite the anger burning inside him. "Over 10,000 aliens aboard," replied Lieutenant Adams from the sensor station. "And, sir, we're detecting several hundred non-Imperium life forms in the lower levels, many of them red as children." James gripped the command chair's armrest tightly. "Begin Phase 1. All ships maintain stealth positions. Launch the infiltration pods." Across the fleet, small black pods shot out from the larger ships. Each contained a team of Earth's best soldiers, equipped with armor reverse-engineered from the crashed scout ship. The pod surfaces absorbed all light, making them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Inside the lead pod, James checked his team's gear one last time. The quantum-enhanced combat suits they wore would let them match any Imperium technology they encountered. 20 years of preparation had led to this moment. "Remember," he said to his team, "we're not just here for Daniel. We save everyone we can." The pods landed silently on the station's outer hull. Using tools adapted from Imperium tech, the Earth forces cut their way inside. James led his team through maintenance tunnels, following the life sign readings. They encountered their first Imperium guards in a side corridor. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in advanced armor. They looked down at the human intruders with glowing eyes, clearly expecting an easy fight against primitive beings. They were wrong. The Earth soldiers moved with enhanced speed, their quantum-powered suits letting them react faster than the Imperium guards could follow. Within seconds, the aliens lay unconscious, taken down by weapons designed specifically to counter their technology. "Their armor's just like the stuff from the scout ship," one soldier whispered. "They haven't upgraded it in 20 years. They really did think we were harmless." James's team reached the lower levels, where they found rows of sealed chambers. Through the windows, they saw children from dozens of species. Some looked almost human, others completely alien, but all were clearly young. In the third row, James stopped. There, sleeping on a small bed, was Daniel. His son looked unchanged from the day he was taken, preserved by some alien technology. "Found you, buddy," James whispered, his hand touching the glass. But before they could start the rescue, alarms blared throughout the station. On his tactical display, James saw massive Imperium warships appearing around the station. They had spotted the Earth fleet. "All teams, begin evacuation procedures now," James ordered. "Get every child out. Fleet Command, initiate Phase 2. As the rescue teams worked to free the captives, the Earth fleet sprang into action. The Imperium ships opened fire, expecting to destroy the primitive human vessels easily. Instead, their weapons splashed harmlessly against quantum shields. The Retribution led the counterattack, its weapons specifically designed to target weaknesses in Imperium technology. Other Earth ships followed, moving in formations that the Imperium had never seen before. Inside the station, James's team moved quickly through the chambers, freeing children and leading them to the escape pods. Daniel woke as James carried him. "Dad?" he asked sleepily. "I knew you'd come." "Always, buddy," James replied, fighting back tears. "We're all going home." The battle outside intensified. The Imperium commanders couldn't understand how their supposedly primitive opponents were beating their best ships. They didn't realize that humanity had spent 2 decades preparing for exactly this fight. As the last of the rescued children were loaded into pods, James looked at the alien children they had saved alongside Daniel. Earth hadn't just struck back at the Imperium. They had shown that humanity would fight to protect all innocent lives, not just their own. The hidden edge wasn't just their advanced technology. It was humanity's determination to do what was right, no matter the cost. The unified Earth fleet emerged from the battle victorious, but their mission wasn't over. The rescued children needed medical attention, and the data recovered from the research station revealed a dark truth. This facility was just one of many across Imperium space. In the Retribution's medical bay, doctors from Earth treated children from a dozen different species. Daniel sat on a bed while a doctor checked him over, his father standing nearby. Unlike many of the other children, he showed no signs of experimentation. They were keeping him in suspended animation. The doctor explained to James. It seems they were saving some subjects for later tests. Her voice hardened at the last words. James watched as his son played with a small alien child. The other creature had blue skin and 4 arms, but both children laughed the same way. What about the others? He asked quietly. Many show signs of genetic manipulation. The Imperium was studying how different species adapt to changes. Some of these kids have been here for years. The doctor's hands shook with anger as she looked at her tablet. We found their research logs. They don't even see them as living beings, just test subjects. On the bridge, Colonel Morgan coordinated with the fleet's other ships. The rescued children's DNA samples were being compared to missing persons reports from across known space. Already, they had matched several children to species that had reported abductions. "Commander," she called as James entered the bridge. "You need to see this." The main screen showed a map of Imperium space. Red dots marked confirmed research facilities, dozens of them scattered across thousands of light years. Each one potentially held more captive children. James studied the map, his jaw set firmly. "Send this data to Earth Command. We're going to need more ships." Within hours, the response came back. Earth's leaders had made their decision. They would attack every facility simultaneously. The element of surprise was gone, but they had proven they could match Imperium technology. The unified Earth fleet split into smaller attack groups. Each would target a different facility, coordinating their strikes through quantum communications that the Imperium couldn't detect. James stood before the assembled rescue teams in the Retribution's main hangar. "What we found in that first facility was just the beginning," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "There are thousands more children being held prisoner. The Imperium thinks they can treat young lives like laboratory specimens. Today, we show them how wrong they are." The teams deployed across Imperium space, each ship carrying Earth's most advanced weapons and strongest determination. They struck like thunderbolts from clear skies, appearing suddenly above research stations and medical facilities. The Imperium's response was chaos. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology, let alone one that could strike everywhere at once. Their arrogance had left their research stations poorly defended. At each facility, Earth forces found more horrors and more children to save. Some were barely alive after years of experiments. Others, like Daniel, had been kept in storage for future tests. The rescue teams worked tirelessly, fighting their way through Imperium defenses and evacuating every child they found. James led the assault on the largest facility, deep in Imperium space. As his team fought through the corridors, they found not just children, but adult prisoners too. Species from across the galaxy had been taken for study. "Your people, they came for us," asked one alien prisoner as James helped them from their cell. Their translator struggled with their language, but their gratitude needed no translation. "We came for everyone," James replied, helping them toward the rescue ships. "No one deserves to be treated like this." As the coordinated attacks continued, word spread through the galaxy. Humanity, a species the Imperium had dismissed as primitive, was striking back against their oppressors. But more importantly, they were fighting not just for their own, but for every child, every person the Imperium had taken. The first strike had become more than just revenge. It had become a liberation. The Retribution's main conference room had never held such a diverse gathering. Representatives from 15 different species sat around the table, each rescued from Imperium research facilities. They looked different from one another. Some had scales, others fur. Some had multiple arms or eyes. but they all shared the same expression of fierce determination. Commander James Anderson stood at the head of the table, with Daniel sitting quietly beside him. The boy had refused to leave his father's side since their reunion, but he also spent time helping the other rescued children adjust to their freedom. "The Imperium has been taking our people for generations," said a tall, crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells through the translator. "We thought we were alone in our suffering. We thought we were powerless." "Not anymore," James replied. "Earth is willing to fight, but we'll be stronger together." A holographic display in the center of the table showed their combined territories. The Imperium's space dwarfed them all, but scattered throughout it were dozens of worlds belonging to the species they'd rescued. "Many of our worlds have technologies we kept hidden from the Imperium," said another representative, their green scales shifting colors as they spoke. "Like Earth, we developed them in secret, always fearing the day they would return. One by one, they revealed their hidden strengths. One species had mastered gravity manipulation. Another had developed undetectable stealth systems. A third had weapons that could disable Imperium ships without destroying them. My people can heal almost any injury," said a small, fuzzy creature with 6 eyes. "We can help the children who were changed by their experiments." James watched as hope began to replace fear in their eyes. These species had been isolated, picked off one by the Imperium. But together, their combined technologies could change the balance of power. Daniel tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "remember what you always tell me about helping others." James smiled, remembering his own words. "When you help others stand up, you become stronger too." He addressed the group again. "Earth proposes an alliance, not just for fighting the Imperium, but for helping each other rebuild. Every child we rescued deserves to go home to a free world." The representatives discussed among themselves, their translators creating a symphony of different languages. Finally, they reached a unanimous decision. "We accept," said the crystalline being. "Let the Imperium learn what happens when they unite their victims against them." Over the next few days, ships from their various worlds arrived at a secret location deep in space. Each brought their best technology and brightest minds. Working together, they began combining their innovations in ways none had imagined possible. Earth's quantum drives merged with gravity manipulation technology. Stealth systems enhanced healing pods. Weapons became more precise, designed to disable rather than destroy. The children became part of this unity too. In the fleet's medical bays, alien healers worked to reverse the damage done by Imperium experiments. Children who had been altered began to heal, their bodies returning to normal under the combined care of different species. Daniel spent time with them all, learning their languages and sharing stories. He showed them Earth games, and they taught him their own. The sound of children laughing, human and alien alike, echoed through the ship's corridors. "The Imperium made a mistake," Colonel Morgan said, watching the Allied ships working together. "They thought taking our children would weaken us. Instead, it gave us all a reason to unite." James nodded, watching Daniel play with his new friends. They wanted to study different species. Well, they're about to learn something important about all of us. "What's that?" she asked. "That any species willing to fight for their children is stronger than they could imagine. And now they don't have to fight alone." The alliance grew stronger each day. Ships practiced combat maneuvers together. Scientists shared discoveries. And in the medical bays, more children healed and smiled again. The Imperium had created their own worst nightmare. A union of species fighting not just for survival, but for justice. The warning came from Earth's long-range sensors first. The Imperium had finally gathered its full strength. A fleet so vast it darkened the space between stars. 5,000 warships, all heading straight for Earth. Commander James Anderson stood on the Retribution's bridge, watching the enemy fleets approach on the main screen. The Imperium had abandoned all pretense of stealth. This was meant to be a show of force, a message to humanity: resist us and be destroyed. "They still think they're only fighting Earth," Colonel Morgan said, studying the tactical display. They have no idea about our allies. James nodded. That's exactly what we want them to think. All ships, maintain radio silence. Stay in your hiding positions. The Allied fleet waited in the darkness of space, their combined stealth technology making them invisible to Imperium sensors. Ships from 15 different species had gathered to defend Earth, hidden behind planets and asteroids throughout the solar system. On Earth, civilians watched the sky with a mixture of fear and determination. They had been preparing for this moment. Underground shelters were ready, defense systems were active, and every nation stood united. The Imperium fleet entered the solar system with overwhelming confidence. Their supreme commander transmitted a message to Earth, broadcast on all frequencies. Primitive species, the translated message began. You dare to strike against the Imperium. Your recent attacks have sealed your fate. Surrender now, and we may spare some of your population for research. James looked at Daniel, who sat quietly in a special seat installed on the bridge. His son had refused to return to Earth, insisting on staying with his father. Around him, other rescued children who couldn't yet return home watched the screens with serious eyes. Should we respond, sir? Lieutenant Adams asked. Oh yes, James said, his voice firm. Send them our answer. The retribution decloaked directly in front of the Imperium fleet. One ship, seemingly alone, facing an armada. The Imperium commander actually laughed when he saw it. This is Commander James Anderson of Earth, he transmitted. You took our children. You treated them like lab specimens. You thought we were primitive and weak. That was your mistake. He pressed a button on his command chair. Now let us show you what a primitive species can do when you threaten their young. At that signal, the entire Allied fleet decloaked. Hundreds of ships appeared from their hiding places, their combined technology making them more than a match for the Imperium's numbers. The Imperium commander's laughter died. For the first time, fear crept into his voice. What is this? How dare you unite with other lesser species? Lesser, James replied. The only lesser beings here are those who experiment on children. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Show them what we can do together. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations across the galaxy. The Allied fleet moved as one, their different technologies working in perfect harmony. Earth's quantum weapons combined with gravity manipulation created holes in space that swallowed Imperium ships whole. Healing technology kept Allied ships fighting even after taking heavy damage. The Imperium fleet's formation broke. They had never faced an enemy like this. Multiple species fighting together, each covering the other's weaknesses. Their technological advantage, maintained through centuries of oppression, meant nothing against the combined innovations of their former victims. Daniel watched from his seat as the Imperium ships began to retreat. They're running away, he said, surprised. They're learning, James replied, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. Learning that they should have never taken you, or any of the others. The battle raged throughout the solar system, but its outcome was never in doubt. The Imperium had brought numbers and arrogance. The Allies had brought unity and justice. As the last Imperium ships fled or surrendered, cheers erupted across the Allied fleet. Earth had not only survived, it had led the first successful resistance against the Imperium in centuries. The message would spread quickly through the galaxy. The age of the Imperium's unchallenged rule was over. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy had changed forever. The great halls of the new Galactic Council, built in orbit around Earth, hosted representatives from hundreds of worlds. Species that had once lived in fear of the Imperium now walked tall, their voices heard in the chorus of a free galaxy. Commander James Anderson, now Admiral Anderson, stood at the observation deck with Daniel beside him. His son had grown taller over the past year. The trauma of his abduction, healed by time, and the friendship of children from across the stars. Look, Dad. Daniel pointed at a ship passing by the window. Its crystalline hull sparkled in the sunlight. That's from Petra's world. She said they're teaching other species how to build them now. James smiled, remembering the crystalline beings who had first joined their alliance. Like many others, they no longer kept their technology secret. The age of hiding was over. The Imperium's fall had been swift after their defeat at Earth. As news of the battle spread, more worlds rose up against their oppressors. The Alliance fleet, led by Earth ships, helped liberate planet after planet. But they didn't just bring freedom, they brought hope. In the medical centers across Earth, alien healers worked alongside human doctors. Together, they had successfully treated every child who had suffered under Imperium experiments. Many families had been reunited, their tears of joy needing no translation. Admiral, Colonel Morgan approached them, tablet in hand. The last Imperium research facility has been converted. It's now the largest children's hospital in that sector. James nodded with satisfaction. Where the Imperium had once conducted cruel experiments, healing now took place. Every former research station had been transformed into a center for learning or medicine. The council chamber filled with representatives for the day's session. Humans sat next to beings of all shapes and sizes. Some floated, some crawled, some shifted colors as they spoke, but all were equals here. The children's education program is ready to launch, announced a green-scaled representative, the same one who had first shared their stealth technology. Any young one who wishes to learn about other species and worlds will have that chance. Daniel raised his hand excitedly. He had already enrolled in the program, eager to learn more about his friends' cultures. Many of the rescued children had done the same, their shared experience creating bonds that crossed the boundaries of species. Outside the council station, ships from across the galaxy moved peacefully through space. Earth's quantum drive technology had been shared, allowing free travel between worlds. Trade flourished, cultures mingled, and understanding grew. Sometimes, James said quietly to his son, "Good things can come from bad situations. The Imperium took you to divide us. Instead, they united the galaxy." Daniel watched as a group of children, human and alien, played in the station's zero-gravity recreation area. "Dad, remember when I was scared they'd come back for me?" "I remember, buddy. I'm not scared anymore. Because now everyone protects everyone else's kids. That's what makes us stronger than the Imperium ever was." James hugged his son, proud of the wisdom he had gained. The boy who had been taken from his backyard had returned as a bridge between worlds. In the years that followed, the galaxy entered a golden age. The combined knowledge of hundreds of species solved problems that had once seemed impossible. Diseases were cured, hungry worlds were fed, and the stars themselves became highways between friends. The former Imperium worlds, too, found their place in this new order. Their people, freed from their leaders' cruelty, learned to cooperate rather than dominate. Many became the strongest advocates for protecting the rights of all species. And on warm summer evenings, in backyards across Earth, children still chased fireflies. But now they often did so alongside friends from distant stars, their laughter a reminder that the galaxy's greatest strength wasn't technology or weapons. It was the simple truth that every species, no matter how different, understood. Protect the children, and you protect the future. The Imperium had sought to use that truth as a weapon. Instead, it had become the foundation of a better galaxy, one where no child would ever again be taken from their home.